All right, let's talk about manners. I bet when I said that word, you probably cringed a little bit. For most of us, it just brings back these memories of, stuffy rules, itchy clothes for special occasions, and being forced to say thank you for a gift you secretly hated. It just feels fake, old-fashioned, and honestly, a little annoying.
But what if that whole view is just wrong? What if manners aren't about being fake or following outdated rules at all? What if they're actually something way more powerful? We're going to reframe them today. Think of them less as rules and more as a software update for being human. Or better yet, the training wheels we need to build real character. And maybe, just maybe, the actual infrastructure that holds our entire society together.
So here's the big reframe, the one idea that changes everything. We often have to physically practice a behavior for a long, long time before we can ever truly feel or understand it emotionally. And that simple concept, well, that's the key to unlocking what manners are really for. And this totally flips the script on how we as adults think about learning things. We always want to know the why. We demand it. But when it comes to moral development, the action has to come first. You got to do the thing before you can ever really get the thing. This whole journey from just doing something to truly understanding it, it basically happens in 3 steps. First, you just copy the rules. Then you start to get why they exist. And finally, you actively choose to make them a part of who you are. So that's our roadmap for this explainer. All right, phase 1, copying. I mean, think back to being a kid. Saying please wasn't some deep moral act, right? Of course not. It was a password. It was purely transactional. You knew there was a cookie on the line and some adult was staring at you just waiting for that magic word. You were just going through the motions. And okay, this brings up the biggest, most obvious criticism of all, doesn't it? If a kid is just saying sorry because you told them to, but they don't actually feel sorry, aren't you just teaching them how to be fake? Aren't you basically training them to be little hypocrites? It's a really fair question. And this is where the bicycle analogy just hits it out of the park. When a kid is on a bike with training wheels, they're pedaling, they're steering, they're faking it, really. They're simulating the real experience of riding a bike without understanding a single thing about the physics of balance. But think about it. If you waited for them to get the physics first, they would never, ever ride. That fake behavior is the necessary first step to actually learning. So even when it feels totally robotic on the surface, there's actually some really important stuff happening under the hood. You're building muscle memory for social situations. When a kid has to wait their turn, even if they're fuming inside, they are physically practicing the act of delayed gratification. They're literally carving out new neural pathways for considering other people. The what is doing all the heavy lifting long before the why ever even shows up. And that brings us to phase 2, understanding. Because eventually those training wheels have to come off. This is the part of the journey where the why behind all that copying and faking finally starts to click. And this is the critical transition. This is where we stop seeing manners as these arbitrary, annoying rules we have to follow, and we start seeing them as practical tools we can actually use to make our lives and everyone else's work a whole lot better. And a lot of the time, we learn this lesson the hard way, through what you might call negative proofs. We see the true value of manners most clearly when we see the chaos that happens when they're not there. I mean, let's take interrupting. We usually just call it rude, sure, but have you ever been on one of those chaotic Zoom calls where everyone's talking over each other? It's more than just annoying, right? It's a complete breakdown of data transfer. Information literally gets lost. So the rule, don't interrupt, isn't really about being polite. It's a logistical tool to make sure the system can actually function. Or what about this one? Kindness disappears. That's such a powerful idea. It suggests kindness isn't just a feeling you have inside. It's an action that has to be transmitted and received. If you hold the door for someone and they just walk right through without even a look, the physical act happened, yeah, but the social connection, the kindness, it was broken. That thank you is the handshake that completes the circuit. Without it, the act feels empty, and the kindness just evaporates. So really, all these tools have one main job, to reduce something called social friction. And the best way to think about it is like traffic laws. I can drive through green light without panicking because I have a shared trust that you will stop at your red light. That shared agreement makes the whole system predictable and safe. Well, manners are the traffic laws for our social lives. They create that same trust and predictability, and they allow us all to lower our guard just a little bit. And that leads us to the final and maybe most important phase,
choosing. This is where, after all that copying and understanding, the external practice starts to become a real, internal part of your identity.
Just look at the difference here. The shift is subtle, but it's everything. In phase 2, your reason is totally functional. I don't interrupt because it messes things up. But in phase 3, the reason becomes part of who you are. I don't interrupt because I am a considerate person. See? The behavior is no longer just something you do. It's a reflection of who you are. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? We don't think our way into being a better person. We act our way there. We practice the form of kindness, the form of patience, over and over, until one day we wake up and realize we actually possess the genuine substance of it. It's basically fake it till you make it, but for your character. So let's put it all together, the daily choice. When you see all 3 phases, you realize manners are so much bigger than just being polite. They represent this constant, daily choice we all make about the kind of world we actually want to live in. Just imagine for a second, a space with absolutely no manners. A place that's completely stripped of all these learned behaviors, where everyone just acts on their raw, unfiltered first impulse. You know what that is? It's a comment section on the internet. It's chaotic, it's unproductive, and it's psychologically unsafe. And that's the perfect modern-day illustration of why manners aren't just about being nice. They are the essential infrastructure that prevents our society from collapsing into one giant toxic comment section. So every single time you decide to use them, every please, every thank you, every time you wait your turn to speak, you're not just being polite. You are making an active and powerful choice. You are choosing cohesion over chaos. You're choosing safety over threat. You are choosing the health of the group over your own immediate selfish impulse. And that leaves us with one last kind of tough question to ask ourselves. Once you know how to ride the bike, once you understand why the rules of the road are there, not following them isn't an accident anymore. It's a choice. So in those moments when you decide to cut someone off in traffic, or talk over a colleague, or just ignore someone who held the door for you, if manners are a choice, what are you really choosing then?